Hi, folks. Danny here with Partay. So, normally, whenever I interject like this, is because somebody has reached out and asked us a question or asked us our opinion on certain things. And in this case, that's not the case. We're just interjecting because we saw the back and forth between Crow and Kenneth Bird in regards to using light meters, right? So we're going to opine on that, and primarily because for many of you who had just joined and haven't necessarily been a subscriber of ours for, say, more than a year, what you wouldn't know is that it was actually Partey that introduced the whole concept of lux measurement for screens. That was part of the physics piece that we had undertaken whenever we were working with different students from universities all around us here. You could throw a rock and hit colleges around here. So we have a large breadth of resources to pull from whenever it came to physics, and physics specifically the physics of light. So we're going to go through just a couple of things here to show you how this works. So you've heard me say two things. Now, this specifically addresses two statements that Mr. Bird has made over the course of his demonstrations over the past 2.5 to 3 years. These two are actually coupled together. One is lumens falling out of the sky, and the second one is distance throw. His distance throw tests, okay, which are useless, meaningless. And we're going to show you why. Because the second thing that we've always said, besides the fact that these are lies, that they're not true, and this is all evidence that's going to be going up against Mr. Bird and things that he's going to have to disprove in a scientific manner, okay? Not just eyeballing something. Oh, look how good that looks. This is amazing, amazing, amazing. Everything's amazing, fantastic. But the truth is, there's no truth to it. So we're going to address both of those because they both go hand in hand in the way that light works. So the second thing that you've always heard me say is that this is calculable through mathematics. And we're going to show you why that's true. So first, let's start with taking a look at a calculation based upon beam angle. Okay, you've heard me mention beam angle in the past. So let's take a look at that. All right, so let's take a look at our specs here. Starting with the third line down, Ken's using the CS4 Sony, so it's roughly 1,000 lumen projector. That is peak brightness, right, and open gate. So we would be looking at a very generous, I'm going to be generous and give Mr. Bird 800 lumens that he's working with off of that projector. Now, the distance is 4 meters, roughly 13 feet. The beam angle roughly 15 degrees to be able to make anywhere between a 40 to 50 inch image, which would put him at a maximum lux of 930. Now, because Mr. Bird makes Lambertian screens, and we know that they're Lambertian because you have the same view from the side as you do from the front. A black screen's only going to do that if it's Lambertian. Otherwise, it would be breaking the laws of physics, which Mr. Bird's not doing in his house. We know that. So that leaves you with roughly 370 lux to work with on the screen. Now, it only takes about a quarter of that to completely wash out the image. Doesn't seem like much, right? So that's going to be less than 100 lux that it takes to wash out that image. So it just goes to show that the lighting environments that Mr. Bird's using are, keep in mind, we're being generous here with what we were giving him in lumens. What that means in layman's term, guys, is that the lighting environments that he's showing these displays is what we call low to moderate. Okay, anything between 0 to roughly 70 lux is what we would consider low to moderate lux. Okay, and that's where Mr. Bird is hiding his screens out constantly. Whether he's outside doing a display or he's inside doing a display, when he goes outside, you'll notice that his displays are always just a few minutes before it gets dark. So he's actually doing those displays in twilight. Now let's take a look at what happens whenever you move your spread, your beam angle, out to a more appropriate size that's going to fill a full-size screen. So now we're at 35 degrees, still 4 meters, still 800 lumens, and you see how the lux drops substantially. That's why Mr. Bird will always do the small displays, and when he does do large displays with low lumen projectors, you really can't see him well. And in light environments, even with the smaller beam angle, you still see the impact to the screen. And I'll show you that here in just a second so that you can see that even using a smaller image, it still looks bad. As you can see, this is horrible for outside reproduction at twilight. Now don't let the light fool you, because as I'll show you in a minute, Mr. Bird constantly abuses his ISO settings on his camera to make it look brighter outside. And I'll give you a direct display of that in a second. Now, this is the beam angle piece. You can pause this if you want to. This is roughly just a hand-drawn graphic that shows you the difference. That inner cone from the lens would be roughly about a 10-degree angle, right? Beam angle coming out. So you've got everything kind of focused in to make a small image. The wider one, the dotted line, you would see that'd be more appropriate to, say, a 35-degree angle where you'd be making about a 100-inch image. And if you notice the question mark at the top there, it's because it's really all determined by the lens. Distance is just a consequence of that, okay? So the distance throw, if you can make the same image size from 6 feet that you can from 13 feet, 13 feet really doesn't matter anymore. But it's fun to do because you can mislead people with that using these business and conference projectors. Now this is a graphic direct from Optima's website showing that if you use a 3000 lumen projector to make a 60-inch image, you're basically putting 2000 lux up. As soon as you blow that up to a 120-inch screen, you're only getting 500 lux. Once again, more reason why Bird uses small image displays. And you can see from here just how bright his screens aren't whenever he's turning to go by his screens, right? It'll get brighter as he gets closer because he's focusing the camera on the screen to get that to be the brightest thing in the room. So it makes it look brighter than what the screen actually is. Because these screens are sub-gain screens, okay? 0.4 or less in gain, which means that it's going to be a dim image. It's going to be very dim, and the only way you're going to be able to make it look not dim is to falsify the display. So for a few of you guys, you're now starting to have an aha moment as to why Kenneth Bird uses so many business and conference projectors. It isn't because they're necessarily so cheap. It isn't necessarily because they're so bright. It's because they're cheap, they're bright, and they have all of them that he uses, okay? Extended lens capabilities, okay? So they have more than a 1:2 zoom ratio. And that's why, so that he can use those projectors to make a very small image from more feet away. With your consumer grade projector and the lens that is on your consumer grade projector, you may only be able to make a 50-inch image from about 6 feet away. Once you get to 8 to 9 feet, it starts making that image bigger because you can't zoom out any further, okay? And that's why he uses these projectors, the same reason he's used the Venue. Now with the Venue, I would also say that here's a reason, and this is off AVS forums, and this is a kind of an article that was put out on AVS forums, and I'm going to include the link in this video. So if you want to check it out for yourself, feel free. I scrubbed it myself, and I agree with everything that it says in there. There are times when people insert opinions and things like that that I don't necessarily agree with. It isn't necessarily factual. It's just more their opinion. This is very factual based, and you can take that to the bank. So I'll have the link in there. You can look at it, but now you'll understand after you read this little blurb here. I'm going to read it to you. You'll be able to tell why he moved to Venue projectors, why he had to. He didn't really have much of a choice given the material he's making his screens out of. An excerpt from the article. If you want a really dynamic image in a well-lit room, you could use a matte 0.1 gain black material or just flat black paint and a 10,000 lumen projector, but you would need at least a dedicated 15 amp circuit and temperature controlled projection room to incur the associated bulb and owner cost. This is basically saying, look, if you want to use these black, dark Lambertian screens, the only way they're going to work is if you use extremely high lumens. So in short, moving to large lumen venue projectors is not easy, and it comes with its own myriad of problems. Now here's one of many examples that we have of Mr. Bird adjusting his exposure midstream. So you notice he got the camera set. Now watch the sky. There you go. Okay, so to sum up, lumens don't fall out of the sky. Okay, that's not what causes your screen to wash out. It's not the distance between the projector and the screen. It's actually the beam width that is going to determine how intense the light's going to be on your screen. The more compressed the light is on the screen, the brighter the image is going to be. The more that you spread the image out to a larger image. You could take a 100-inch image that looks gorgeous, move it to a 150-inch image with the same projector, same screen, and it will look much dimmer because you've spread the light out thin. Okay, that's just the way it is. I like Tang, but if you take 2 tablespoons of Tang and put it into a glass, it's intense and it's good. You take that same 2 tablespoons and you throw it into a gallon of water, it's going to be diluted, and that's what we're talking about here. Okay, and the light in between the projector and the screen that comes down and hits the light from the projector does not impact it. That is a direct lie from Mr. Bird. Those photon particles, because they're on the same electromagnetic wavelength, they just basically act like ghosts to each other. So all of these things have been propagated in order to make you believe that there's something special about his screens, that they'll pick up those few remaining lumens that don't fall out of the sky. So you can see it's a lie. You guys take care. Bye.